again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright.
Good afternoon, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. And as the eyes of the world are focused on Downing Street, you have chosen to be focused on me, John, and Supermac for an hour to talk about Newcastle United.
Yeah, we get more sense from us.
Let's talk about the important things, NUFC.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. And off camera there, John was suggesting that Steve Bruce could probably be the next incumbent of Downing Street.
Yes,
well,
Steve
I'm afraid
Bruce
to
for
say
Prime
that he
Minister.
could probably do a better job than Liz Truss.
Yes, Steve Bruce for Prime Minister, more cheese for the miners. That's what we said.
I love it. I love it.
It's lovely to see something else in chaos instead of Newcastle United with Mike Ashley.
I know.
Yeah.
I
Both
know.
things, unfortunately, affect us. That's the problem.
Okay, absolutely. We're making light of it, but it's not really. But after last night, I don't want anything to darken my mood.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Look,
only one defeat, so let's concentrate on that.
Hey, exactly. I mean, look, we could chuck stats around all day, but it's another win, John. And I think my tweet that I put out last night about the game, I said really my assessment of last night's game was a bit like the weather forecast. It started off dull. It started to brighten up. It was quite changeable. There was some dark clouds and then there was sunshine at the end of the day. So for me, that was the way I felt about the match. It wasn't the best start. I felt there was a 20-minute period, of course, where the goal was scored, where Newcastle were fantastic. Some brilliant stuff from the Brazilians and, Paraguayans and Geordies and everything that's in our squad. And then the second half, we came out and I felt we were in slow motion. In fact, the whole game was, and it took me 5 minutes to work out what Everton had done, and simply they just stretched the play. They had their players hugging the touchline, and Newcastle had to adapt to that. And I said to Malcolm at the Dog and Parrot last night, I went, fair play to Eddie Howe, because he stood, he watched, and he thought, how do I combat this? And he managed to have a plan B, which was he changed the personnel.
Yeah, we haven't been used to those, have we, in recent management?
We haven't. But yeah, look, it resulted in Newcastle.
Steve Bruce never had a plan A.
No, he didn't. But he won the game. He won the game with a touch of class, a bit of ugliness, and with a bit of brains. John, Eddie Howe's boys did the business again, and they were prepared to fight for each other as well last night. But I'm sure we'll come to that. But what did you make of the show, John? What did you make of the match last night?
Yeah, well, precisely a lot of those thoughts. And it was very different to our last home game. Brentford, was it, where we could win it with some attractive football, etc., etc. Everton are fighting for their lives. They're fighting down at the bottom of the table. We are fighting much nearer the top, and isn't that in itself wonderful? But we were always going to have to beat Everton ugly, because they were going to play that way. They were going to be in your face. They were going to irritate you. Yes, they stretched the game in the second half. But did you notice, whenever the whistle went, I was sitting with Malcolm watching the game last night, whenever the whistle went with a foul or with a clash of two players, about 8 Everton players were immediately round the referee, round the ball, round the Newcastle players. There was one stage in the second half, something went off with Gordon. And before I looked round, Pickford was berating the fourth official on the halfway line while there was a stop and play running out from goal. I mean, they were always going to be in the face. Now, the good thing is that Newcastle, who want to play on the front foot, if they get sucked into a game like that, they physically took up the challenge and said, well, we're not going to roll over and you can tickle our tummy. We'll give you a bit of that back. And it therefore become more war and a niggly war and an unattractive game than a good game. But the bottom line is, we're 6th top in the league. We have lost 1 game out of 10. Tottenham, who come along next, have lost 2 out of 10 because they lost to Manchester United. And we have the best defensive record in the Premier League, 9 goals let in 11 games. And that isn't because we're a defensive side playing on the counter, a side full of fear, Campton War and penalty area. We're on the front foot. We go at teams, but we defend as a team and we attack as a team. We defend from the front. The midfield, whether it's Longstaff or Bruno, will put a shield in front of the back four. The back four are looking after themselves, and then we're pushing on up front. 12 months ago, at this stage of the season, it was frightening. It was all hands to the pump, and the clouds were dark over our head. It was raining every day. There's an awful lot of progress being made, and we're in a very, very healthy position in a very short space of time. So I'm more than happy. A win was essential last night. We drew at Manchester United, and that was a good result. I said at the time, but it was
John, in particular, when you look at the result that they had last night, where they beat Spurs.
Of course, a good result.
So that made that point really valuable.
Yeah, I think the two draws we got with the two Manchester clubs, City and United, were excellent. But because you draw away, you want to win at home, as we've always said. Draw away, win at home, you ain't business. So there was pressure on Newcastle to win this one before we went to Spurs. And they did win it. Job done for me. More than happy.
Yeah, Malcolm, what was your take on the game?
I thought the back four throughout were absolutely superb. All four of them. And I think that Everton realised they were going to have one hell of a job. And in the end, over 90 minutes, they never tested Nick Pope once. Not once did they get a shot on target. And the few crosses that they got in were dealt with, I think, quite easily by either Pope or one of the centre halves, or if it dropped a bit short by either of the fullbacks. And so Pope becoming the fifth in that back section, absolutely magnificent. They really were. And interesting that you made the point, yes, and so ably assisted by the whole of the midfield. And the graft and work that Newcastle are putting in, it's twice, if not three times the amount that we were getting prior to the current manager. And so you can see the confidence level is high. And Almiron, absolutely fabulous goal. It really was. It was one of those very special moments. He's actually hit it first time, and yet he's had utter control on it from just outside the box, where he's curled it and it's dipped as well. So difficult to do, and he did it perfectly. And the keeper never got anywhere near it, not anywhere. And it was a goal that was worthy of winning any game. And so at the end of the 90, I felt quite content, because you're always going to have games through the season where even at home you might not be fully on top. You might be put under pressure by the opposition. And Everton certainly did that last night, particularly in the second half. But Newcastle just weathered it. They weathered the storm that was thrown at them by Everton. And for all the possession that Everton had, and they had a lot of possession in Newcastle's half, I couldn't see them scoring. And I actually sat quite relaxed watching Everton attempt to create a chance. And I just had that very strong feeling that it wasn't going to happen for them. It wasn't going to happen at all. And so well done to all of the players, because everybody had to graft. But just going back to Almiron, I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again, and I'll keep saying it if I have to. But I've heard a lot of people talking about Almiron and why is he suddenly turning it on. and I am convinced it's the presence of Wilson. And what I'm concerned about is because Almiron, where he kept running to the corner flag, he's now got a focal point inside the penalty area. And so he aims at that focal point. And what concerns me is if Wilson gets injured, and we know that he will at some point, it'll be later, perhaps, rather than sooner, but who knows? But we know he will get injured. He'll be out for a few weeks. What I'm concerned is that Almiron doesn't just suddenly disappear into his shell again, and that he keeps it going.
I think we've also, and I take your point, Malcolm. I mean, what's happened with Almiron has been nothing short of sensational. But I think the Wilson thing apart, and Wilson's been here a little while. Miggy's been here 3.5 years.
Yeah.
It's 134 games he's taken part in, and it's only now he's looking to play that is absolutely outstanding. And I think Eddie Howe is something of a miracle worker. When you look, it's not Newcastle aren't where they are purely because we have bought well in January and the summer, although I have repeatedly said that, and we have bought well with Trippier and Bruno, etc., etc., etc. But what Howe has done looked very average and turned them into quality is quite staggering. Now, 3 examples. Joe Linton's obvious standout example. That needed a change of position from centre forward to midfield. But he is a totally different animal. But he's not the only one. You look at Shaw. I thought Shaw was sensational last night. Botman has got a lot of headlines since he come because his quality is good on the ball, etc., etc. And Shaw's gone under the radar. But Newcastle bought a completely new back four. When you think of Target, Botman, Byrne, Trippier, and the goalkeeper, Pope, the one man that survived from the old team, Shaw. Now, Shaw, for me, under Steve Bruce, was a walking mistake waiting to happen. He could be decent on the ball, but you knew he was going to make a mistake, and it was whether it was going to be
you wouldn't have to wait too long, John.
Yeah, and it was whether it was a goal against us or it's somehow the guy missed. But you knew there was a mistake. He is now looking a calm, assured defender, confident, comes out the back with the ball. Shaw's a different player. Joe Linton's a different player. Kraft was a different player when he was fit. Shelby, when he first come, when Howe first come, got a benefit before the injuries come, and he disappeared. Ryan Fraser, different body language under Howe. And above all, apart from Joe Linton, Miggy looks totally different as a player to what he had looked. He was always a hard worker. He always ran 100 miles an hour. He always covered every blade of grass, but he was a headless chicken. He ran everywhere, forwards, backwards, sideways, whatever, with little bar enthusiasm. Now he's doing it intelligently. When he's tracking back, he's getting tackles in. When he's going forward, it's with purpose. And when he's round the penalty area, one of the differences I've seen, Malcolm, is when he was round the penalty area in the past, he snatched at chances. He snatched at them anyway. He is now cool. One touch last night. If he had took a second touch, that space would have closed down and he might never have scored. One touch in the back of the net, and he strokes it in the back of the net. They look like worldies because he takes the inside of his foot and boom, through it, and it's into the net. He is now cool on his chances where he snatched at the ball in the past. And, he is one of the many that looks a different class since there's been a change of direction in training, in attitude, and in the management of the club. He really has benefited, but he's not alone. Joe Linton, Shaw, other people have benefited as well.
Yeah, Massively. Great result. Stephen Kennedy says it must be frustrating for Callum Wilson wanting to push for a place in the World Cup squad, but not getting supplied with any chances to show what he can do. He says, how would Supermac have been reacting if it was him in that position? I would beg to differ, Stephen, because I felt last night there was a hell of a lot of unselfish work, Malcolm, from Callum Wilson, because he was supplied with the ball, but he saw people in better positions than himself and chose to square the ball, pass the ball to them. So I'm not so sure that we're not seeing chances being created. I just think Callum Wilson's a far better player than we had him down as. He's not just a goal poacher, a goal moocher. He's somebody who can actually, be very creative. And I think Eddie Howe's developing that as well in Callum Wilson, making him a better player.
I think so. Yes. From what I'm seeing, you can't pick one player out and say, well, he's not improving with the rest of them. Everybody's getting better and better all the time, and yes, we're seeing another side to Callum Wilson up front. He's bringing other people into play an awful lot more, and the reason for that is that they're supporting that. The support that Callum Wilson gets is so quick; it comes to him. It's right there. Woof. As soon as he lifts his head, he's got the choice. I can play it there. I can play it there, and the work rate of the team is so greater than anything that we saw from before this season. Long may it continue, because I think it's fantastic. And even last night, for all the ball that Everton had, they could not make an inch of space anywhere.
The one thing that bothers me about Wilson, and it's the obvious, staying fit, because it's so important.
Yeah.
And the one thing that bothers me, guys, when I'm in the middle of 3 matches in 8 days is, Wilson will forget that in a way he's still just coming back from his latest injury. He's just played 2 or 3 matches on the bounce. We know he's not going to last the 90 minutes because he's fragile physically. He's normally substituted anytime from 74, 75 minutes onwards. And he looked physically shattered last night. And when he came off, he looked like, he'd given his all, which he always does, and it was time for a rest. And I'm concerned when we're going down to Fulham straight away about his physical and mental tiredness, his physical tiredness and mental tiredness because of his body being fragile for the game at Spurs, because we are lightweight up front. With Maxi and Isaac, long-term injuries, that's a huge blow, because plan B on the bench, where if it's not going well, you throw Maxi on, who's different and runs up trouser legs, and Isaac, who is clever, can't play with his back to goal, as Malcolm's often said, absolutely true, but he's clever and he can play wide. They would be 2 options. They denied us. Now, if for some reason Eddie Howe, and heaven forbid, felt he couldn't start Wilson on Sunday because physically he's drained or he's whatever. If he had Maxi to play a false 9 or he had Isaac to play, there would be alternatives. The alternative, or even if you started with Wilson, but you could only get 50 minutes out of him before he was subbed, there's alternatives waiting in Maxi and in Isaac. There's not alternatives without them. And it is the one position where we're vulnerable. And the long-term injuries to Maxi and Isaac have gone under the radar to a certain extent, because the first team's been the first team. It's picked itself. It's stayed unchanged. And we've either one draw. So it's gone under the radar. But we could get exposed by it in the coming few matches if there's a need to change anything for any particular reason, either for injuries, to rest somebody, or just to change the pattern of the match during a game. We're more restricted than we were.
Yeah, 100%. Great to see Willigan Anderson given minutes on the pitch. Thought they added greater composure to the side.
Yeah.
Miguel
Almiron. He does some lovely things, He really does do some super things. And I had to check with John last night, you know, Steve, as to whether the lad was still 18 or whether he was actually a lot older than that, because he looks mature. He's got a hell of a physique on him, but he's also got a maturity about the way that he plays when he takes the ball into his feet and he looks up, and he's just looking as if he's playing with experience. And yet he hasn't had half an hour on the pitch, I don't think, yet.
Yeah, Miguel Almiron in the Premier League this season, 11 games, 5 goals, says Tommy. We touched on him earlier, and that's all that really we've asked for, these midfield players to start pitching in with goals. And boy, has Miggy raised the bar this season. He's now got to keep it there. Question from Malcolm. Tom says, do you think Dan Burn should have a go in the England squad, possibly the World Cup? What's your thoughts on that? Dan Burn and Shaw were my outstanding players. I mean, Malcolm picked out the back four earlier on in the show. But for me, Dan Burn was absolutely brilliant again last night. And you've got to bear in mind, I'll come to you, John, on this one first. You know, he's a local lad. We all like to see local lads do well. I think most of us probably would admit we never really heard of him before he came to Newcastle. We'd obviously heard him on the team sheet, you know, for Brighton, but we hadn't really paid much attention to the lad. But he's come here and he's a colossus. And there's been a lot said about him getting in at the left side in the left back position ahead of Matt Targett, who we all thought was a shoe-in. Eddie Howe's explained it at the press conference. You know that Eddie has a. You know, he looks at these people in training and people impress and some people drop off, then there'll be changes. And, you know, Dan Burn's been great at left back so far, and he had a tough night with Anthony Gordon last night.
I thought it was his best game at left back for Newcastle last night. I felt in the previous home game, Brentford, wasn't it? He wasn't so clever at left back. And Anthony let him off the hook at Manchester United because 83 million pounds, and he didn't go at a left back who was not a left back and was on a booking, and he had him for pace and he didn't take him. It's a disgrace. Some of their signings are shocking. But Dan Burn last night did terrific. He's got the heart the size of a frying pan. He will always do well for Newcastle and always do well for any club he was in. He was loved at Brighton by the fans and by the management for exactly that reason. It's interesting. I always find it interesting that he's playing at left back, because if you asked Dan Burn, if I asked either of you two boys Dan Burn's best position, you wouldn't say left back, you'd say left-sided centre half, I presume, because that's what his whole career has been about. And now Newcastle have orthodox left backs. It's intriguing because they have orthodox left backs in Dummett, Jamal Lewis, and Matt Targett, but they're all being kept out by Burn. And it's because of his big heart, his willingness. 8'6" off helps when the ball's pumped in the air, mind, which it was at times last night. And he'll never let you down on attitude or determination, etc., etc. But you wouldn't think next season, if we are pushing for the Champions League top 4, would you expect Dan Burn to be a left back? Steve?
Hey, I tell you what, I wouldn't be surprised if he is. Eddie Howe's a loyal man, and I think if the guy is still pushing, and why are you saying next season but pushing for the Champions League? What's the matter with this season?
The matter with this season, it ain't going to happen this season.
We're sitting sixth.
I know we are, but have you looked at the teams above us? Who are we going to replace?
Got to win those big games. We're now starting to talk about winning big games at the top of the table, not winning games at the bottom. We've played Manchester United and we've played Manchester City and we've took 2 points off them. We've took a point off Manchester United at Old Trafford, and we were very unlucky not to get 3 points against Man City at home. So
no question about that.
We were robbed by VAR at Liverpool.
Well, we're robbed by the referee losing his watch.
Yeah. So, I mean, look.
Again, we're done by Isaac.
I'm being a bit naughty, John. I'm playing devil's advocate. But ultimately, you know, you never know. You never know what's going to happen. And the World Cup break is going to be something that none of us have had to deal with in the past. And you made a point earlier on there. Isaac and ASM will be back after the break. It'll be like 2 new signings.
We've got to be able to keep going without them until that. And if everyone stays fit and healthy, we can do. if everyone stays fit and healthy, but we just need one injury somewhere. I mean, if Miggy got injured on Sunday, if Callum Wilson got injured on Sunday, we're in trouble. If Botman got injured, we would just put Byrne in there. If Byrne was injured, you put Target in there. You can get away with it in certain positions. You can even possibly get away with it in midfield because you've got Bruno and Joe Linton and Willock and Longstaff and Anderson. But you can't get with the one position I think you can't get away with it at Newcastle is up top. We are not covered up top, especially with Maxine Isaac out at the moment.
Yeah.
That is the one position where you're on a wing and a prayer, really.
I still fancy Newcastle to finish above Manchester United. We had this discussion with a Man U fan on the show on Monday night, and I personally feel Newcastle can finish above Manchester United. They'll need a bit of luck. We're going to have to beat them at home, but I think it'll be close. I think that's how
Will it finish above Liverpool, who are beneath us at the moment?
It's weird, isn't it? Liverpool still look 100% as if they are going to make some kind of comeback. They are.
You keep expecting it, don't you?
They look like a team that's they get off to a poor start and then they're playing catch up. And I still think that they'll be second, but I think Arsenal's going to win the league. So they could, they're going to have to probably.
Finally, Arsenal win the league. Liverpool finish second. Man City presumably finished third, and that makes Newcastle fourth. And everybody else has dropped off the world. Chelsea
let's get a bet on, lads. Let's get to the bookies this afternoon.
By the way, I'll settle for that because for 14 years I was asking which 3 teams are worse than us, so we could stay in the division.
Yeah. All right. Let me ask you this. My turn to play devil's advocate. Can you see honestly the squad being strong enough and big enough to cover all of the effort that's required for the Premier League, FA Cup and League Cup, and then play almost every week in midweek in the Champions League? I think it's a big ask, and I am really not sure that the squad is big enough and strong enough for that. I think it needs another, I was going to say 12 months, but really it's 18 months.
3 windows.
And then we might be absolutely ready. I would have no fears whatsoever if we were to go into the Europa League next season. That would be great. That would just be a real taster.
Because, of course, we would have 2 windows to change that squad then, January and the summer.
Yes.
You don't change it too much in January. Last January was an exception. We had to change it. New owners, new manager. We've got to stay in the division. We changed it big time.
Sure.
Normally, January is tough to change it, but we would have next summer. Isn't this wonderful?
Go to Sutty's question now then, lads, because it's a good one, because Malcolm's talking transfer windows again. Sutty says, who would you sell in January, or do you think we should just add depth to the squad? Personally, if we can get replacements in January, I would try, I can't believe you're saying this, I would try and get Wood, Murphy, Lewis and Shelby off the books. What's your thoughts then, lads? Chris Wood, Malcolm nearly had a palpitation last night when he thought I'd said it was all down to Chris Wood winning that game. He misheard us. I was talking about Eddie Howe, but I was pleased that he brought Wood on to hold the ball up. That's what I was saying.
There's 3 of those 4. Yes, I totally agree. Move them on.
Is that Wood, Murphy,
not
and
Murphy.
Shelby?
Not
Right.
Murphy's the one you would keep.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I still think he's the best crosser of the ball in the club. He will get into the box. He will score goals. I think he's really working hard to integrate at the moment into the side. It's a massive step up for him, I think. But I just have that feeling he'll get there.
You've got to decide. You could get rid. Talking about getting rid, whether it was January or at the end of the season, you'll have to get rid of one of the left backs. Either Lewis or Dummett will have to go, because we've got Target, you've got Byrne playing there, etc., etc. You can get rid of either Lewis or Dummett. You can get rid of Manquillo on the right hand side, who is not getting a look in. And yes, you can move some of the others out, but some of the others you've got to get somebody in. For example, yes, you can improve on Chris Wood, for example, but you've got to get somebody in. You've got to get another forward in.
Even if Wood were to stay, you've still got to get somebody in.
Oh, yes,
so whether he's here or not,
without a shadow of doubt. But I mean, you know, at the moment, you've got to keep Wood for a body because we haven't got centre forwards. We haven't got, and as you say, Isaac's not really a centre forward. Maxi's not a centre forward, although he plays false nine.
Yeah, he's not.
But we need an out and out centre forward to back up Wilson without a shadow of doubt. And that would be the case to get into Europe and with us in Europe. But I would want to concentrate a lot more in January about who we get in than who we get out.
Sure.
Because we can just leave people out the squad and sell them in the summer. But we need to get some bodies in. I would still like a centre forward in. The way things are looking, are we happy with our left backs, or we're going to get a Trippier that can play on the left side, a full back, etc., etc. Do we still want a midfielder like Maddison, or are we suddenly thinking that Willock and Anderson can make a difference in there? Are we happy with our wing positions? Almiron's changed.
I'd still bring Maddison in.
Yeah. So there's still work. There's still work for improvement that can be done without a shadow.
Yeah, absolutely. But I do understand what you're saying about the left back position. But I think we're covered with Target, Burn, and let Lewis go. Because what's his name?
I mean, the incredible thing is that Lewis was on the bench last night ahead of Dummett.
Yes, so I know.
In a 20-man team, in a 20-man match day squad, 11 starters and 9 on the bench, and you've got a left back in Byrne who's not a left back, and you've got Lewis and Target on the bench. Dummett can't even get on it in a 20-man squad, and he's fit. So you would think he would go, and you would think that Paul would want to go because at this stage of his life, to be the 21st man in a 20-man squad, no future really. Is
sure, no future whatsoever. And the one thing that at his age that you want to do is keep playing regularly.
Absolutely.
There's a bit of chat in there about trouble after the game. I mean, I haven't seen any of the videos that you're talking about there, John and Julie and other people who were mentioning it in the chat. There has been animosity, it has to be said, amongst the factions who like to go to football and still have a little ruck. There has been a little bit of friction over the years. It spiraled out of control, I think, in London.
Steve, never mind over the years. Last night, first of all, the players, all the Everton players, they were niggly. They were moaning. They were groaning. They were petulant and on at the referee all the time.
Billy Gaddis mentioned this in the chat. He said, do you think they came to unsettle us, Malcolm? Oh, he's frozen.
He's gone. Well, why?
He might be back. Now, bearing in mind, this isn't like the old days with the dog. He sometimes freezes.
No, he's gone outside. He might have heard the ice cream van and he's gone to get an ice cream.
He's back. He's back. Go on, Malcolm. You were in full throw. You were in full throw, and then you looked like a passport photograph.
Yeah. Because so the players were doing it on the pitch. Lampard was up to it on the sidelines the number of times, and for most of the second half, the fourth official had to go and stand next to him to try and keep the situation calm. And then much later on, Pickford has rushed over and he's berating the fourth official. And when supporters of that club have seen that happening through the match, then they're going to get niggly as well, and they're going to get upset. So I'm not surprised it happened. I thought generally the behaviour of the Everton team players and their manager, I thought they were out looking for trouble. They knew they weren't good enough. No matter what they did, they weren't good enough to combat Newcastle. And Newcastle, they just took it all from them, and then came out playing all the while. And I think out of total frustration, they turned. I said before the game, Everton will not have a shot at goal. And that's how it turned out. Now, when you're in that side and you can't get a shot at goal going, you are going to get frustrated.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Everton, Billy Gaddis asked in the chat, do you think it was a deliberate ploy by Everton to come in and settle us? Yeah, I do. I think that they were trying like mad to unsettle us. It's we're going to get used to this. We're going to be there to be shot at the hell by these people. Do you know what I mean? So in other teams. So from my perspective,
they're not 100%. Good enough to cause an error in the Newcastle side. But
you're absolutely right. You've got to take it as a backhanded compliment when sides do that against you, because you can't blame them. Why should they come and roll over and let you tickle their tummy? They're going to think, we can't compete man for man skill-wise, so we'll rattle a few cages, and that's fine. But what I enjoyed about last night was that we didn't roll over when it did that. We said, well, if you want to make it a scrap rather than a game, we'll make it a scrap with you, and we'll handle ourselves. And we did handle ourselves, and we got the result as a consequence. And there's many, many ways of winning. And if you're near the top of the Premier League, you've got to be able to win in several different ways, whether it's football. I mean, there was one wonderful footballing move in the first half, remember, with a couple of back heels in it. And I think it ended up with Bruno shooting just outside the post. It was delicious football. But if you're not going to be able to do that because two sides Man City will come up against you. They won't roll over. They're not soft, but they'll come up against you and say, our skills against your skills. And their skills normally win. But Everton will come up against you and say, our toughness and niggle against your toughness and niggle. And that gives them a better chance than it being skill v skill. But you've got to expect that, take it as a compliment, and not roll over. And Newcastle did last night and got the result, I think, they deserved without a question.
And truly deserved, yes. What? Yeah. And you can say, it's okay to say, well, Newcastle didn't play so well today. So well done them. They didn't play so well, but they just handled everything. They kept Everton at bay in all situations, in all departments of the pitch. And I was thoroughly impressed with the way that the Newcastle players went about it. And you could tell that as the game went on, Everton were getting madder and madder and madder, simply because they were getting nowhere at all.
Yeah, they were getting frustrated, 100%. I think the answer to this question is me and John would like to play in this team. Billy says, would Supermac like to have played in the current tune side if he'd been a player today? I think me and John could get a couple of goals in this team.
I think I would just be a penalty area moocher. I used to be a lounge lizard. I think I would turn into a moocher now. And
that was in Grays, though, John. That was in Grays.
I would just stand in the penalty area with a fag, just having a little smoke, waiting for the ball coming across, and then just toe-ending it in after it had been set up and all the work had been done by Bruno and Miggy and Callum. And then I just run to the halfway line with my hand up in the air and then collapse when I got to the halfway line because the smoke would have taken everything out my lungs. But I would play in that side.
By the way, Malcolm, before you come to that as well, we've got to say thank you to Dodo Bird because we didn't do it last week, and it slipped my mind. Thank you, Dodo Bird, for A, turning up at Pumphrey's to see John, B, turning up at the Dog and Parrot to see me and Malcolm. It was lovely to meet you and your good lady. And thank you for your kind presence of the wonderful artwork. I will get the photograph sorted off my phone at some point and get it on the show. But it was nice to meet them guys, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
I mean, it was beautifully framed, and he'd put an awful lot of work into it. It was a terrific draw, and I'm not certain the sentiment on mine was the best in the world or a true reflection of my life, but nonetheless, it was appreciated that he'd put in so much work. I would like to think it was the exact opposite of the life I'd led. There we go. I'll leave viewers.
I've never seen Malcolm look as concerned, I think I'll say, when someone is on the microphone, first of all, and B, when somebody is about to present him with something, because he didn't know what on earth he was getting. But it wasn't bad. It could have been a lot worse. And Dodo Bird, thank you so much.
Certainly could,
God bless him for that. And I hope he's managed to stitch his trousers.
And he does it to give us a laugh. That's what he says, he certainly gives us that.
He did.
Would you like to play on the current Newcastle side, Malcolm?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'd love to play in the side as it is now. And also,
could you get in instead of Chris Wood, though? That's what I would have. You can't take it for
granted. Not if I was manager.
You can't take it for granted.
I know, John. Oh, dear. Yeah, I think I might have to think about going elsewhere.
I am sitting waiting for that. I am sitting waiting for that game where he gets the winner and the newspaper headline, John, in the Chronicle reads, "Would you believe it?"
Would you, Adam and Eve it? Yes. And if I was writing an article, I would put on the end, no. I can't believe it. But
yeah.
By the way, if Chris Wood, bless him, wants to get the winner at Tottenham Hotspur on Sunday, I will be thrilled to bits. The fact that I'd be staggered and on an iron lung searching for oxygen is a totally different matter. But I would be delighted for it to happen because Newcastle would have won then.
Okay,
I would love to see it. And perhaps having witnessed the miracle that's Joe Linton and the miracle that's Miguel Almiron, is Eddie Howe walking on water to such an extent he can make Chris Wood look like Usain Bolt and make him look like Wyn Davies in the air and Malcolm MacDonald on the floor. That would be the biggest miracle of all. But who knows? Perhaps
you know what? I saw Sean Longstaff again be the whipping boy on social media last night. People criticising Sean Longstaff. Newcastle's won 1-0. He played his part like everybody did. You guys have rightly picked out that the midfield ably supported the back four. We go. Callum Wilson did a great job. Sean Longstaff was part of a very successful team in the minute, doing very well, back in the team, cemented his place in the team. Often forgotten, it has to be said. Does a lot of the dirty work, but he seems to be the target now. Because Chris Wood's not on the pitch. So my question here is, do we have to have a boo? Do I have to have somebody who's the boo boy's favourite? John, is that something that's gone on in history? For years.
Oh, I mean, it's gone on for years, and not necessarily just with the Newcastle United crowd. But for example, everybody on the popular side, which Malcolm and I knew was the popular side, but in fact is the opposite side to the main stand now, everybody on that side used to give Frank Clark upsy-daisy, and Frank Clark is one of the best defenders, if not the best defender I've seen in Newcastle United.
Yes.
But he used to get slaughtered by the popular crowd on there because when he attacked, he got a nosebleed approaching the halfway line. Never mind
and John, there was one other as well.
Tommy Gibb got
it
all.
Frank Clark, Tommy Gibb as well.
Tommy Gibb got it all the time.
Oh, dear, did he get it in the neck? Poor old Tommy.
So there's always been somebody that's not a favourite of the crowd, and that's nature, and I guess it's human nature that some are going to be less loved. And if you're Longstaff, bless him, and you're playing in a midfield that's got Bruno, who every Geordie's in love with, and 90% of Geordies would leave their lass if they could shack up with Bruno. That's the situation with Bruno, and the other one's Big Joe. And there's more people in the crowd with Big Joe shirts on with his photograph all over the shirt. So he's adored. So if you've got Big Joe adored and Bruno adored and you happen to be the third midfielder, you're going to finish third in a 3-horse race, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
in popularity.
And he does an awful lot of donkey work, does Sean?
Yeah, he does.
And you can see that Bruno likes him, loves him, in fact, and appreciates what he does, and so does Joe Linton.
You've got to have somebody. If you've got artists, whether it be Bruno or whether it be Tony Green from the old days, or Hibby or whoever, you've got to have it. I was going to say a donkey, but that would be hugely disrespectful to people that played that position. I don't mean that. You've got to have a grafter, because you can't have three fancy Dans, else when you haven't got the ball, the opposition will run straight through you. You've got to have a grafter in there. And the grafter is never going to be everybody's favourite in the crowd. There's absolutely no chance of that.
Absolutely. But that grafter, he gives Bruno the freedom just to suddenly go when he sees that moment. Whoa, he can go, and he doesn't have to look back over his shoulder, because he knows that he's being well covered. And that's what Sean Longstaff is doing.
The grafter is loved by the ball-playing playmaker, and is loved by the manager, but the ball-playing midfield player is the one loved by the crowd. That's natural, and that's the way it will always be.
Always.
And, not just with Newcastle, with any crowd in the country. I mean, Manchester United are going to love whoever plays midfield, Ericsson or Fernandes or everybody. They're not going to love Right Said Fred or McTominay, who are just getting their knees dirty. They're not going to love them too. They're going to love the fella that flicks it up his trouser leg over his shoulder and then does a bicycle kick. That's the one that's going to be loved.
Yeah, 100%. I just want to touch on a death at the club as well. From yesterday's news, I didn't really have much time to touch on it with me pre-match patter show yesterday, but George Forbes passed away, former club director and chairman, prominent businessman in the Borders in Northumberland, and he served as a club director from 1983 before becoming chairman in 1990, and he remained a proud supporter of the club and a regular at St James's Park until his death. Sadly, he passed away aged 78 on the 12th of October. So condolences from us, but it was sad news, lads, wasn't it?
I didn't realise that. I've just heard now, and very sad news, because I had a lot to do with the board during the John Hall takeover years, when it was a very bloody 3-year battle, 2-and-a-bit-year battle to take over, and I saw it on the inside, being a member of the Magpie group, and George was in the boardroom at the time, so he was on the t'other side to our side, and there was knives drawn on both sides. It was absolutely inevitable, because we were fighting for the heartbeat of Newcastle United. But George always kept his dignity throughout those times, never resorted to being a pig with his nose in the trough in any shape or form, kept his dignity. He was a dignified man. There was absolutely no question about his love for Newcastle United, and it remained long after he left the boardroom, and we respect him immensely for that. I've got no recollections but fond memories, and he went up in my estimation because of the way he handled himself at what was a horrendous time in the dignity of Newcastle United, and other people around him didn't handle themselves anywhere near as well as George. So condolences not only to his family, but warm memories of the man himself, and what was never, ever, ever under suspicion was his love of his club, as it's our club. Not talking as a director or anything, but his club as a fan. He was a fan like the 52,000 others. No question about that.
Malcolm?
Well, I think I met him once, quite a number of years back. I just found him a quiet, somewhat studious, but very enthusiastic guy. And he just wanted the best for everybody. I appreciated his warmth. And I think when I did meet him, it was at the time that I brought Mirandinha to the northeast. Yeah, if memory serves.
Yeah. Lovely guy. Rest in peace, George. I met him a couple of times as well. Lovely fella. He was part of the club as well, of course, with the ill-fated shares scheme. I think that's when I actually had some dealings with him in the local media. But it's never good. And the fact that he remained a fan tells you all you need to know about the man.
Sure.
We've got 10 minutes left, guys. I have got a few questions, so forgive us if I move on onto a couple of these points. Jules, let's go to this one. One of our moderators, one of our diehards. One for towards the end. She says, what did Gibbo and Malcolm make of those behind the European Super League appointing a new chief executive? Where does it leave us?
That one went under my radar, Steve.
Yeah.
There's lots going on, guys. I think there was talk the other day about them trying to get the Charity Shield played abroad. There's been talk of cup semi-finals being played abroad. There's lots of things going under the radar at the minute with regards to the Super League, and I think that's why you probably miss it.
This sounds an awful lot to me. It sounds like more like Burley speak, Todd Burley at Chelsea. You know, coming up with all these wacky ideas and what have you. But so this is a chief executive of what?
Nothing at the minute. Nothing at the minute.
No, to become chief executive of a new Super League. Yeah, is what we're talking about, Steve. I mean, the interesting thing
the league doesn't exist, does it?
Well, we're talking about
chief executive of something that doesn't exist
because they intend to make it exist, don't they? We talked about it on this program a couple of programs back about the fact that the Super League would not go away, and while it went away because the English clubs thought, oh dear me, with the backlash they got here. Liverpool and Man City and Arsenal, and with the backlash, oh dear me, pack with tents, get them in the back of the car and let's take off in a cloud of dust. The foreign clubs, particularly the Italian clubs, etc., were determined to keep the idea alive and keep it going. And this is yet another step along that long road towards saying that if you persevere, when it was first muted about a European League, when it was first muted about a World Cup, back in the days long gone, even before I was born, when all those ideas were mooted, there was resistance or dismissal for them early on. World Cups, European Cup, the Club Cup, that's now the Champions League. They were always dismissed. So this lot's trying to hang on, make it happen. But it's not a Super League of promotion and relegation, of anything that might have a nice hum about it. It's let's all go together, let's all make a fortune, and let's make it a closed shop so nobody else can come in and take our goodies. It's like a tuck shop and leaving us out all outside with where noses pressed against the window looking at the toffee apples. Well, we're not for that, because we want to smash our way into that. And by the way, if Newcastle United were in some sort of European Super League with 6 other clubs, I wouldn't want it to be a closed shop just because Newcastle were in it, because that would produce the most boring competition there's ever been. If there's no fear about finishing at the bottom, you can finish at the bottom every year and you still stay in the Super League. No thanks. It's not for me, and it's not for the average fan without a shadow.
And I'll tell you who I don't think it's for either. And that's the new owners of Newcastle, the members of PIF and Amanda Staveley, her husband. I don't think any of those would. I may well be wrong. This is purely my opinion. But I think that they want the competition of what the European structure as it stands at the moment brings. And I think that they're working up the pyramid, looking to get into into the Champions League. But this Super League that they're talking of, it is a completely closed shop, and it just removes the rest of football, and it's going to be very much like the American Football League.
Yeah, it's not something that we really want to see happen.
No.
No.
And then the Americans have never known anything different.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure that they can understand what real, true competition really is on a
the whole essence of sport. The whole essence of sport for me, whether it's football, whether it's athletics with 100 meters or 1,000 meters, it's competition. It's competition with the wonderful glory of winning and the absolute fear of finishing last, and the relief of not finishing last, so you don't have relegation. We've lived on that oxygen for 40 years.
Wow.
Twice I've had to bottle it, but it is the way it ought to be. If you take away competition, it all seems pretty pointless to me.
Sure.
We'll watch
Why don't you just have the Harlem Globetrotters and do a tour, and it doesn't matter what the scores are?
Yes.
We'll watch it with interest. I'm sure it'll get knocked back again in due course, but we'll just need to keep an eye on that. Sutty, I do rate Wood, and I rate him on the back of what he did last season. Do I think he's going to be Newcastle United's other option on the bench moving forward? Of course I don't. And would I be gutted if he left? Look, I'll wish him all the best, like I'm sure a lot of Newcastle fans will. I think he'll go in January. If I genuinely do, and I think Newcastle will move to bring in another forward then. But look, it's the same with Matt Ritchie. I play devil's advocate. I like to have a little bit of a laugh on here and wind the lads up and lasses who come on the show. So yeah, look, Chris Wood, I do like to champion the underdog. I think that's probably the best way to put it up.
Gillespie for goal, get Pope in the reserves. That's what I say.
Yeah, okay. Spurs away this Sunday, 4:30 kickoff, live on Sky Sports. Newcastle face Tottenham Hotspur, and a little bit early for team news, but we do know that Alexander Isak and Carl Darlow will still be out. There'll be no appearance, I would imagine, from ASM either. Still a way to see what the news is on Joe Linton when Eddie Howe hits the press probably on Friday. I'm sure we will find out. As for Tottenham, again, early team news. Well, Brian Gill is missing out. Lucas Moura is available again. There are doubts at this moment over Richarlison and Kulusevski. Ahead of our visit, Spurs lost 2-0 at Manchester United last night. But at home, they've got a 100% record in the Premier League. They beat Southampton, they beat Wolves, Leicester, Fulham and Everton. Since they lost 1-0 against Brighton, which was way back in last April. They've won 8 successive Premier League games at home. Referee this weekend is Jared Gillette, a second game for him after the 3-3 home draw with Man City. And VAR is Stuart Atwell. He is back in front of the VAR cameras after looking over VAR in the home game against Bournemouth, which included that penalty decision in our favour. Travel, well, London Underground services are unaffected by scheduled closures this weekend, but there is some disruption to the London Overground, so make sure you make your journeys with a little bit of knowledge about what is going on. And let's have a look at this game then, lads. What do you think, John, first and foremost? How do you see this going? Somebody asked in the chat before, would you put Anderson in instead of Murphy? I think it might have been Roger who asked the question. Would you make any changes? I mean, I think we've realised now that unless there's an injury, we're probably going to be pretty much unchanged with Eddie Howe's team selections because he's happy at the minute.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. The situation is he talked a lot about spreading the load. He's never done it, but he's talked a lot about spreading the load over the 3 games because it's 3 games in 8 days. I can understand why he didn't do it against Everton because coming off the back of a good result against Manchester United, it's only a good result if you beat Everton. If we'd lost Everton, it would have been a different complexion on the whole thing. So he had to put out his best side there. Will he spread the load? Without Maxi and Isaac, there's only about Target and Fraser and Willock that you can actually start in theory, because it wouldn't weaken the side greatly if you did that. So it's limited what he can do. We don't know how bad otherwise Joe Linton is. We don't know how physically Wilson and other people are shattered or with little knocks. I mean, you never know, do you? We went to Manchester United. It was an hour before the kickoff. They were told Maxi wouldn't play again until almost the World Cup. And that Willock had been ill all week and hadn't trained and therefore wouldn't start. He keeps his information very close to his chest, and that's fine. But looking at the match without looking at the team selection, yes, the home record of Spurs is quite unique. I mean, away from home, I think they're very vulnerable. If it was up here, I would take, without question, a Newcastle United victory if it was at St James's Park. At home, they've won again, going back to last season. Yet I looked at the matches they've played, and it's 10 matches of 10 successive wins, but that includes Europe, Steve. I think when you said 8, that was without Europe. They've won 10 successive matches at home. But I went through the list, and there isn't a top team in there.
Yeah.
They haven't beaten Man City. They haven't beaten whoever. The only one in there, and it was from last season, that's quality is Arsenal. They beat Arsenal last season near the end in the North London derby, but 4 days later, Arsenal come up to us and we beat them. That was the end of it. That was Arsenal imploding. It's not the Arsenal of this season. It was the Arsenal of last season. So while they've got a fabulous home record, they haven't been knocking over the top sides at home. So they're not as great as all that. Having said that, any side that's got Kane and Son, you can't believe are pretty punchless in a poor side, because they're two quality players. And if Harry Kane wants to come up here and be understudy to Callum Wilson in January, I'm quite happy for him to do that, because I think he would be not too shabby in a black and white striped shirt.
I'm sorry to disagree with you, John, that I would take Son before I'd take Kane.
Well, I would take both of them. We're greedy and we've got enough money. What's the matter with you? We'll have both of them. And we might then let somebody go, like Paul Dummett and
Chris Wood.
And Manquillo. And maybe it's even Chris Wood. Chris Wood. Chris Wood goes down there and scores the winner, which is what Steve was on about. They might do a direct swap, Wood for Kane, in January, and I'll take that. I mean,
I think with chatter like that, John, on this platform, you can't see the wood for the trees, mate.
Unfortunately, I can't see the wood for the wood. That's the trouble. Anyway, what I think will happen on Sunday, who knows? I think we won't get beat. I'm going to take a draw. I could see we're winning. At home, would comfortably win. But if we get a draw, we'll have stopped their run of 10 successive home wins. And that would be quite an achievement. And I'm not going to be over-ambitious by saying we're definitely going to win, although it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if we did. But if pushed, I would go for a draw.
Okay, Malcolm?
Yeah, it's good. It is going to be a thoroughly entertaining and interesting battle between Son and Kane and the Newcastle back line, which is the best in the Premiership right now. And so I'm looking forward to just seeing how all of that pans out over 90 minutes. And who knows? I don't think Newcastle will lose. And so I'm going to go with John. I'm going to take a draw. There could be goals. There certainly could be. And I won't mind that. But I don't think Newcastle will lose.
I'm going to go 2-2. For me, I think you're right. I think there'll be goals, and I think it'll be an entertaining game. And I think the 2-2 draw. So we've all gone draws. A point at Spurs would be great, says Alan. Great stuff. As always, that hour has passed very quickly. And as you saw in the chat, Liz Truss has resigned. As we started the show with politics, we'll finish with politics. But that's as far as it goes.
Steve Bush for PM. That's what I said.
All right, I am going to play out with the ads. Please be aware they are slightly dated. The event at the end has already passed, but I haven't had time to record the pre-recorded ads. I will try and do that in the next 24 hours. But for now, it's thanks to John Gibson and thanks for Supermac, and I will see you both next week, lads. Have a good week. Take care.
All right, indeed. Enjoy the game weekend.
Bye, mate. Bye-bye.
A big thanks to our sponsors, Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, based on Old Durham Road in Gateshead. Their phone number is 0191 478 2730. You can email Darren at darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk or go to the website darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Thanks to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD, hemp and cannabinoid specialists based on Nunn Street. The GOHD.com is their website. And thanks again to 3 Property Investments, who specialise in sourcing investment properties for their clients who are looking to invest in the North East. They offer a full in-house service from sourcing the deals to managing the properties for you. They've done over 100 plus deals in the past 12 months for clients all over the UK. Give them a follow on Instagram, matty.patter_northeast property and phil.reed_northeast property, or email phil@3property.co.uk if you're interested in getting a good property deal. Thanks to the lads at Mr. Vicky's Handmade in Cumbria. These are hot sauces and you can find them at mrvickys.co.uk or place an order by ringing 01768 210 102. Thanks also to the lads at Blowhole Brewery, a fine amount of ales available from their website, www.blowholebrewery.co.uk. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video technology. Thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. If you want to subscribe, hit the badge in the corner and you can subscribe for free. Still do 7 shows a week. Hit the thumb up to like the video and click share to share to your social media. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify and the rest. And if you want to become a member, click join underneath this video, or you can put your smartphone over the QR code. It will take you to the membership section of the website. If you choose to go that way, then you will get a pen, a cup, a scarf and a membership card and entry into the monthly draw for a one-off payment of £25. We also give you something for free. If you want a car window sticker, email john@nufcmatters.com and he will send you one if you are a subscriber. We also help the food bank on here. NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk is the match day bucket. If you go there, you can make a virtual donation at any time of the year. And don't forget, Peter Beardsley Soccer School, October half term, Monday the 24th to Friday the 28th of October. You can book now, peterbeirdsley.soccerschool.com. Peter's also running Monday night training on the 26th of October. Again, the same website. And if you want to meet Peter Beardsley, well, you've got 3 chances. Newcastle Legends game, Friday, October the 14th. The Peter Beardsley talk-in is taking place after the game. Tickets for this are available from NUFCmatters.com. Adult admission is £5, junior admission is £2. The talk-in is adults only, and that is a tenner. And the events are all taking place at the Fox Hunters Pavilion in North Shields. We've got Peter Beardsley available, tickets available for the St Dom's Catholic Club show. You need to go straight to their website and you just buy your tickets there. And for this one at the Irish Centre, tickets are available now on NUFCmatters.com. Don't forget, Supermac at the Dog and Parrot, every pre-match and every post-match, every home game. And John Gibson and John Anderson are at Pumphrey's pre-match only. If you did like our true crime stuff, it has all migrated to the True Crime channel. So get yourself across there on YouTube and subscribe today.